Now, calls to the National NHS Stammering helpline have more than doubled since the start of the pandemic. We mentioned this earlier in the programme, didn't we, today? The Michael Palin Centre for Stammering says an increase in referrals is partly due to anxiety around talking on online platforms, which can put people who stammer on the spot. Now,
many of you will be familiar with this viral clip from Channel 4's Educating Yorkshire that deals with this very issue.
Perhaps now I can start to do that.
Can I say, we really appreciate how honest and open you've been with us today. I know that these interviews are never easy. I know we're talking about somebody who you love and who you miss greatly. So we really appreciate you coming on today. And it's lovely to speak to you again, and we'll continue to follow this story. Thank you very much, Rad, and Charlotte as well.
Thanks,
Dan. Thanks.
Thanks for having us.
It is 21 minutes past 7. Calls to the National NHS Stammering helpline have more than doubled since the start of the pandemic. The Michael Palin Centre for Stammering says the increase in referrals is partly due to anxiety around talking on online platforms, which can put people who stutter really on the spot.
BBC 5 Live presenter Hayley Hassall has a stammer herself and has been investigating how lockdown has affected sufferers. It's part of the station's Word Matters campaign. We'll have a look.
As most of you know, I have a stammer, although I mostly manage to control it now. And I'm especially good at controlling it when I'm doing my job.
I've had a stammer my whole life, and when I was younger, it was very severe to a point that my parents and speech and language therapists thought that I wouldn't be able to speak. So they would teach me Macintosh, which is basically like symbols, and because they thought that I would never develop a full vocabulary.
I started stammering when I was probably 4 years old. And I think my mum and dad noticed, and they took me to a speech and language professional. And they were informed that a lot of people who stammer at that age won't stammer into adulthood.
Well, we are joined now by the head of the Michael Palin Centre for Stammering, Elaine Kelman. Morning to you.
Hi,
Great
Elaine.
to have you here. You can see, can't you, how people are feeling generally more anxious because of the situation that we've been living in for the last 18 months. And if you already have a vulnerability and maybe a slight stammer, any level of anxiety is going to make it worse. You noticed a change.
Absolutely. And the first thing I should say is that's not because anxiety causes stammering. Stammering is something that happens because of a neurodevelopmental condition, so something in your brain, and anxiety then can just really affect it. So what happened last year with the pandemic and lockdown and all the changes meant that lots of people got more anxious, and parents particularly got highly anxious about their children who started to stammer or was already stammering and started to stammer loads more, and so they rang us up to talk through.
I was going to pick you up on that point, because was it from your figures and speaking to people, is it sort of the development of new stammers or just a worsening of those who already had the condition?
A combination,
right,
I think.
Okay.
So yeah, some of them started to stammer for the first time. And possibly for some of them, they were going to stammer anyway, but the whole thing about being at home as a family and having to do lockdown education and all that kind of stuff meant that parents were becoming highly aware of it and very anxious. The other factor that came into play was that all the services that would normally be available for parents at that point, so normally you go to a speech and language therapist and they'll give you some advice, a lot of that stopped because a lot of therapists were being redeployed in the NHS to go and work on a ward or something. So a lot of the systems that might have been in place weren't there. And a lot of the children who were already stammering, all the disruption, so it wasn't just anxiety. We know that children who stammer, they do very well with a routine and a bit of predictability. Most of us do. Yeah. And they just really struggled with this kind of whole new world and all the difference that happened.
You say that you noticed a huge increase in the number of people calling and asking for help. When someone calls you, what's the first thing that you tell them to do? What's the advice?
OK, the first thing that we say to a parent is, it's not your fault. Because parents are so quick to blame themselves and think they've done something wrong. So stammering's never caused by parents, and a child stammering more is not because of a parent doing anything wrong. So that's the first thing we need to always reassure parents. And then the other thing is to talk to parents about the kinds of things that they've already noticed are supporting their child. So if they see that the child does better when they are just having a quiet one-to-one conversation, do a bit more of that if you can. Bit of a tough call in lockdown, but anyway. Doing things like making sure the child's well rested, talking to the child about what's happening to their speech. A lot of parents think, oh my goodness, don't mention it in case, it draws my child's attention to it and it makes it worse. That's really not the case. The best thing is get it out in the open and say, oh, you're having a bit of trouble. Don't worry, you did well. Just keep going and just keep listening and talking to your child and encouraging them to listen and talk. And then one other thing, really building up the child's confidence. I think a lot of people had a bit of a knock to their confidence, and a confident child who stammers is going to be just fine.
In terms of role models as well, I mean, we're going to be speaking to Hayley a bit later on this programme, and also Mushy, who many people remember from educating Yorkshire, both of whom suffer in different ways with their stammer and sort of live with that condition. How much of an impact does it make to have people like that who are able to confidently talk about what they have done to try and help themselves and come through the other side?
It makes a huge difference, and part of our therapy is to bring in role models because children who stammer often think, well, because I have this going on with my speech, I'm not going to be able to do this, this and this. And parents think the same. So parents think, oh, he'll never get a job teaching, or he'll never get a job as a lawyer. And when we bring in these role models who are showing them that they are just as successful, have all the same number of options, it's very inspiring, and it can just broaden a child's horizons. We had a chap who came in and said that he was a pilot, and one of the boys in the group was just blown away by the thought that that's something I've always wanted to do. I didn't think I can be able to do it.
It's interesting, isn't it? Provide a little bit of inspiration, a little bit of hope and motivation. It really helps.
Absolutely right.
Oh, Elaine Kelman, it's lovely to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. And as Dan said, we will be talking about this again later in the programme.
Yeah. Yeah, and also, if you're watching, well, actually, I'm going to tell you about EastEnders because we've got Brian Conley coming up later on. This is what's coming your way.
You were in a gutter.
And now to sort of reveal to everyone, I was trending on the internet, ladies and gentlemen.
Say that there is going to be a European Super League. We know that the owners of Premier League clubs are in it for investment purposes or marketing purposes. That's fine, no problem. However, what there has to be now is boundaries set, which are not set by themselves. They have to be set by an independent body, and that's hopefully going to happen.
Okay, so you worry if they do this, if they make this decision themselves, there'll be wriggle room to potentially do something down the way.
Well, they're trying to create their own rules to stop them doing what they've already tried to do twice. Doesn't sound right to me. So if something doesn't sound right, let's put two and two together and say, no, we'll take it away from you, which is what Tracy Crouch's reviewers, to be fair, I think recommended.
Gary, we could talk to you all morning.
Carry on if you want. Let's keep going. Why not?
Well,
So
we've got another half hour, Gary.
Yeah. Do stay.
Thank you. Lovely
you
to have
very
you on.
much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And all the best with the scheme as well.
Thanks.
Now, ministers have struck a deal to restart the... Oh, actually, do you know what, Gary?
He's off. He's got the things to do.
You could stay.
No, you can sit there if you like. All right,
stay.
just sit there. Listen to this next bit. Yeah.
You'll love this. Are you ready? Ministers have struck a deal to restart the UK's commercial production of carbon dioxide after warnings that the shortage could disrupt food supplies.
We're not going to talk to Gary about this. We are going to talk to Nina, who's at a brewery not far from here. She's in Salford. Morning, Nina.
Honestly, Gary, call yourself a Salfordian. This is a Salford brewery. You should be interested. Yeah, good morning.
Now, many of you will be familiar with this viral clip from Channel 4's Educating Yorkshire that deals with this very issue. Have a look.
Still one of the best bits to tell you.
Ever.
Yeah.
It's magic. I'm delighted to say that Mushy Asghar, well, that was him 9 years ago. He's now with us, aged 25 morning. Also with us is BBC 5 Live presenter Hayley Hassall. Thank you so much to both of you.
Lovely to see you both, guys.
Mushy, what's that like to watch that now?
Yeah, one thing I always get asked is how does it actually feel watching that clip? And I always say, if only I was told to actually have a haircut first. That is something that I can't change at all. So yeah, but
I'll be honest with you, nobody watching that thinks look at the state of your hair. They're in tears by the end of it.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
It's beautiful. Do you think about where you were then and where you've got to now, and that I don't like the J word, but the journey that you've been on for the last 9 years.
Of course, it's I'm just so fortunate that I've been able to use something that I thought I would never use in order to actually help those people out there. And with all this COVID happening, it just shows how stammering is something that has an impact on all those people out there as well.
Hayley, I know you as Newsround presenter, 5 Live presenter, see you on the telly all the time, but actually you grew up with a stammer. And it's something that I think people who've watched you at home would have no clue about. Tell me about your story.
Yeah, I have a stammer. And in fact, we were talking before in the green room, weren't we, about saying it's so funny that the one thing we shouldn't want to do is talk, because it's quite a challenge. And the one thing we're both doing is trying to talk about it. But I think that's one of the reasons I do what I do, is because, so I had a stammer from when I was 4 years old. And at the time, the NHS didn't offer that much therapy until you were a bit older, because they thought that most children would grow out of it. So I didn't get therapy till I was about 9 or 10. So primary school was really difficult. I was bullied. I didn't want to answer questions. I didn't put my hand up. I didn't want to stand on stage ever. But I had amazing, supportive, brilliant parents who, my mum noticed that when I sang or when I acted, I didn't stammer. So she put me into acting groups and speech and drama and shows, and she kind of forced me to get into that. And it made a massive difference, because it gave me the confidence to speak up and to speak about it. And I found that once I actually said, I have a stammer, bear with me, that actually it gave me the confidence to talk. And I did have something to say, and I did want to talk. And sometimes I do have a stammer, but that's okay. People have stammers, and just give them a little bit more time, and you might find out that someone who has a stammer, because it takes so much effort for them to talk, they've actually got a lot more to say. So listening to them is possibly one of the best things you can do.
Because I know you've done a bit of research, haven't you, over the course of the pandemic, of how people with stammers have been affected. What has that told you? Because there's been a lot of issues, not only people with a stammer it getting worse, but also stammering for the first time.
Yeah, there's been a massive increase in referrals across a range of charities, but also I've spoke to lots of people who have a stammer, and every single one of them has told me that their stammer has become more difficult or more prevalent, and that's through various different reasons. It could be an increase in anxiety, but it could just be the dreaded Zoom call, the video conferencing, where it's not an actual conversation anymore.
See Mushy nodding along to you there,
yeah. And all eyes are on you, and you're struggling to talk, and you can also see yourself, and it's really, really off-putting for anybody. So if the focus is just on the words, it's even more off-putting for someone who stammers. And then also having a face mask in a similar way. You can't use your body language, you can't use your facial expressions. It's all about the audio. So you become massively conscious. And I think it has made people fear talking a little bit more. Put that together with the fact that people have been in lockdown and away from social situations. They've not been doing work meetings, they've not been doing presentations, and now they're told to get back to it. It's that fear again. But I suppose what everyone I've spoken to has said is they want to get back there. They want to get talking, because having a stammer shouldn't stop you talking. It should actually encourage you to talk more about it.
Mushy, how have you handled things like Zoom calls, video calls, all of that? I imagine it's quite tough.
Yeah, so I was basically in my final year of uni, so I was just sat in front of a laptop and just trying to answer questions or ask questions. And it's quite tough, obviously, with going on the TV show. It just made it also seem that I was perfectly okay, like I was cured. So when it came to using Zoom, I would always find it hard in order to actually speak, and obviously having that added pressure just makes things so much harder, because it's using your voice, and if you don't have that, it's hard typing a question and then the lecturer just moving on. So it was.
And for people who remember the clip from 9 years ago and the haircut from 9 years ago, what are you doing now? You finished university and going on to do what? Are you still?
So basically, I'm also a keynote speaker. So I am mainly going to schools and colleges and just show people that even though I still find it hard, I still put myself in those situations which I find it very hard. But all it shows is if one person has faith in you, then you can just go out and achieve pretty much everything that you thought you could never achieve. So,
And what's it like for you to see the reaction when you go and give those talks, perhaps from kids like you?
yeah, of course. That one thing growing up was I didn't really have that sort of person who had a similar problem. So being in that situation where I'm able to help these kids, it's just heartwarming, and just seeing how these kids now have not only me but loads more people who are there who also do find it very difficult to actually speak, but we're obviously still here and trying, which is the most important aspect of it all.
What a treat to have you both on the sofa today. Thank you very much, Mushy. Wish you all the best with the future, the keynote speaking, and Hayley, we'll see you on the box soon again.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Great to see you
It's
both.
brilliant to see you. Thank you. That is it from us on Breakfast this morning. Charlie and Nago will be here tomorrow from 6.
Right now, time for Morning Live with Gethin and Jeanette.
Hello, this is Breakfast with Dan Walker and Sally Nugent.
Coming up for you on the programme this morning, how lockdown has affected people with stutters. We'll find out why calls to the National NHS Stammering helpline has doubled since the start of the pandemic.
Gary Neville will tell us how Marcus Rashford's school meals campaign has inspired him to start one of his own, helping young people from disadvantaged backgrounds access higher education.
You were in a gutter, Uncle Tom. Oh, Rocky. Sorry, whoever you are this week.
Oh, we need some duff-duffs. The revelation of his true identity left EastEnders fans reeling last night. We'll chat to Brian Connolly, a.k.a. Rocky, or whatever his name is, about being the Square's newest bad boy.